Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Ljs Garage, and luckily for me, I finally just hit my 600-mile break-in on my 2019 Kawasaki Ninja. Thanks for those of you guys who are returning viewers. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm going to try to do a lot more content on the Ninja as well as cars. I have fallen in love with both again, and so I'm going to try to find a balance of both. Many of you have been through this situation. You bought your new toy, car, truck, whatever it may be, and you finally hit your break-in window and you're told that you have to go to the dealership to get your initial service done so that way you maintain your warranty, all of that good stuff, which is true in most cases. However, for this Ninja, specifically Kawasaki, you don't actually have to do that, and a lot of manufacturers have switched to where as long as you're keeping receipts and detailed records, they're going to take your word for it and take care of you regardless with your warranty. Still check into it, ask those questions, and make sure you get that stuff in writing so you can make sure that you're covering your own booty there. Regardless of what you're told, it's always important to be an educated consumer, customer, whatever you may want to call yourself. And the most important thing that I want to talk about today is this right here. It is a user manual. And a lot of people are saying, you know, I never really touched my user's manual. Maybe you're more of a visual learner or an auditory learner, so this doesn't really do you much good. But the most important thing is to know exactly what you're getting into when you buy one of these vehicles, and just take time to get into this owner's manual so that when you do go to the dealership and they tell you, oh, you've got a diesel and you need to change your spark plugs, you know exactly what you're getting into, you know, and that's just a silly example. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But I'm going to show you guys step by step exactly what you're getting into with your 600-mile service. And when the dealership tells you that it's going to cost you $300, $190, whatever it may be, and you're thinking, you know, I'm just going to get an oil change, so why am I paying that much for an oil change? Something so easy that this book tells you how to do it step by step. But there's a little bit more to it, so it's not exactly straight up a glorified oil change. There's a lot more to it, but it's not so much more that you can't handle it. So I want to cover that with you guys today. So today what I'm going to be doing first of all is I'm going to be doing the oil change. I was told from the Kawasaki service dealership nearby that I could do that, but I'd still have to pay them $100 minimum hour charge in order to do the service and check over for everything else. So I'm still on the fence about that part, but at least I can save myself about $90 because that's what they quoted me, $190 for the initial service. So I'm going to save myself a little bit of money and maybe not go do that, you know, $100 service and have them check everything over. So oil change is the first step, and while that's happening, I'm going to walk you guys through everything step by step in this, and 9 times out of 10, I probably won't need to make any changes, adjustments, but if we come across that bridge, maybe it's something I could take up with the service department, or if there's enough information in here, we'll be able to knock it out ourselves. Before you do your oil change, go ahead and get this bike nice and warm, or let it cool down a little bit if you've been riding quite a bit. You want it warm enough to get everything, all the contaminants flowing around freely, but you don't want it hot enough that you're gonna burn yourself. The first thing I wanna point out to you guys, so if you're like, oh my God, this guy's just blowing smoke, I want to show you guys something. Kawasaki says this themselves, so I'm going to read this like direct quotation from this user manual right here. With a basic knowledge of mechanics and the proper use of tools, you should be able to carry out many of the maintenance items described in this chapter. So it's not just me that has faith in you guys. A few more things to point out in the user manual. You've got your daily check section, so you should always keep an eye on your fuel level, your engine oil, your tires, your drive chain, your drive chain. And then your bolts, nuts, fasteners, steering, brakes, throttle, clutch, coolant. Other than trying to make you guys educated consumers, this is super important to you guys' safety out there. You know, if you're gonna hop on a bike, you've gotta know what you're getting into. You've gotta know that your bike is ready to go into those crazy corners because you've already checked off those things. You know, it would be a shame if you're on that bike and all of a sudden you're getting into a corner and you realize that your brakes aren't quite where they're supposed to be. It could be a very bad time for you. All right, so this is the section that I'm gonna talk about, and it's periodic maintenance. As you can see, there's the inspection, there's change or replace, lubrication, dealer inspection, dealer change or replace, or dealer lubrication. So let's turn this page, and this is what we're going to be talking about. So here's a little closer view. This is us right here at the first initial servicing. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to check and inspect the idle speed. We're going to check and inspect the throttle control. We're going to check and inspect the coolant level. Over here, we're going to check and inspect the clutch operation. And then we're going to change the engine oil and filter as part of the first initial service. Drive chain, we're going to lubricate that, and that's every 400 miles. Or I've also learned that that is if you've been exposed to rain or riding in wet weather. Moving forward, you've got brake operation. We're going to check and inspect that. Check and inspect brake fluid level. Moving forward, we're gonna check and inspect the brake light switch. And that's it for the initial service. All right, now you guys can see that that's all that the initial service entails. And it's up to you guys as educated consumers to determine if that's worth $190, $200, whatever price you are quoted in your specific area. I know for me, 190 bucks, it doesn't really sound like all that's worth $190 to me, but it's also not enough that I'm gonna be like, oh man, I can't have these guys touch my bike because that's too expensive. You gotta pay to play, and with this one, 190 bucks might actually be worth it, but for you guys and for me, I wanna learn how to do these things so that the next time it comes up, I don't have to take it into the shop and save myself 190 bucks. All right, so we've got our instruction booklet here. It says, first step, if the engine is cold, start the engine and run for several minutes at idle speed. That's exactly what I just did, but I just decided to take it for a quick stroll around the block. So then we're gonna need all of these to locate all those points right there. So we need our oil level inspection window, oil filler cap, upper level line, and lower level line. Perfect little picture diagram for you guys. You don't have to go Googling too much. It's right there for you, nothing crazy. And just to show you guys where everything is on the bike, the first thing I'm gonna point out is the oil level inspection line. And right now, since it's on the jack stand, you're not gonna be able to get a proper gauge for where the oil level is, so you have to stand the bike upright. And then for a closer inspection, there's the upper fill line and the lower fill line, so you wanna be somewhere right in the middle of that. That's where your goal is. And then the last thing that I'm gonna point out to you guys is gonna be right here. And this is gonna be where you actually put your oil, so it's your oil filler cap. The other two components to the oil change are gonna be your oil drain bolt and then your gasket. So we're gonna get into that and I'll show you exactly where those are once we look at the pictorial diagram. So as you can see, we've got something right in our way. This is where your oil filter would be. If you've never done an oil change, you're obviously gonna need something to catch your oil in. I always put a piece of cardboard down just to avoid a big mess. And using these instructions, it tells you where your oil drain bolt is. So the first thing you're gonna have to do is empty out the oil. However, you do run into one problem. You've got this in your way, so we're gonna get that out of the way. Using some common sense, it doesn't tell you how to do it in the user manual, but you've got a bolt here, and then you've got the inside of here, and you see two more Phillips screws. So go ahead and take those out, and we'll move forward. That one was really hot, so I might have ran the bike for a little too long, but that's okay. Some people would also say that you don't have to take this all the way off. You could just do a trick where you wrap it in aluminum foil or wrap it in something to protect it as you drain. But for ease, I like to make sure everything's out of the way so I can get this job quick and easy. And like I said, just the two Phillips on the inside are pretty easy to get to, so why not? I was able to use just this little offset and I was able to get into those guys pretty easy. And then these last two, there was one on the bottom and one at the top or to the side. And it's just these little pull pins. And so you just go ahead and get a flat head in between or your nail and pop these out, and these pop rivets come right out. It'll be up to you if you want to keep it on the kickstand for the draining part. I usually do it on the draining part. And then here's where you're gonna wanna locate this drain bolt right here. So you're gonna wanna locate your shift lever, and then look over here, you'll see your drain plug, and then go ahead and get everything drained. This will be a 17mm plug. Hell yeah. So while that's draining, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through this checklist. So we're gonna check the throttle control system, and that's just to make sure that our throttle is smooth, it has good return and no drag. So we're gonna go to page 118. And then all it says for throttle grip is you see right here, you're obviously going in the direction the throttle moves back and forth, and you're trying to test a couple things. So I'm just gonna read through it. So the first thing that you're gonna do is check that the throttle grip moves smoothly from fully open to close, and the throttle closes quickly and completely by returning, by the return spring in all steering positions. So if you turn the throttle, it returns back to its normal position, which is good. You don't want your throttle to get stuck for obvious reasons. Next up, if the throttle grip does not return properly, have the throttle control system checked by an authorized Kawasaki dealer. So if you decide to, that's where you can take this to the dealership. Otherwise, it tells you here how to actually adjust everything. So you want to make sure that you have enough free play between 2.3 millimeters. So if you were to wrap this around, you'd have 2.3 or 2 to 3 millimeters worth of play. You shouldn't have any more, and you don't want any less. So that's exactly what you're checking for. So right now that looks good. Going back to our checklist, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check our brake fluid level. And in order to do that, oh, and then our brake operation, which I just took it for a drive, so I know my brakes feel good, but we're gonna go to page 128. And for brakes, If you feel there's something wrong when applying brakes, have the system checked by an authorized Kawasaki dealer immediately. So you should be able to tell if your brakes are starting to fade. They're not responding quite the same, but it's pretty straightforward. So now we're going to check the brake fluid level. So we're going to do an inspection. With the front brake fluid reservoir held horizontally, the brake fluid level must be above the lower level line. So we'll go straight over to that and check it out. So this is what we're going to be checking first, and I'll show you guys exactly where that is. So here it is, right above the throttle handle. You're going to see it'll say lower level, and then you just want to make sure that with this bike upright, that this level is at least right to halfway. The next thing you're going to check, let me zoom out just to show you guys where I am at. You'll see right there, it's got the lower level and the upper level, and you're gonna want the bike upright in order to get the proper level. So I can do that here in a second once I'm done draining. But pretty much once the bike is tilted upright, you wanna make sure this is right in between there. If it's not, and you're already at break-in, then you might have a leak. It may never have been filled, so it's something you wanna check into. You'll see that a few of these are marked, but they're not necessarily recommended for inspection today. I'd still go ahead and do them because they were supposed to be done at the dealership. But just go through and check the tightness of all your bolts, fasteners, you know, everything. Make sure nothing moved out of place. Next up, we've got the clutch. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go to page 122. So for the clutch lever, what we're gonna do is check that the clutch lever operates properly and that the inner cable slides smoothly. If there's any irregularity, have the clutch cable checked by an authorized Kawasaki dealer. Check the clutch lever for free play. Free play means anything from 2 to 3 millimeters. So right now everything looks good. This snaps right back, it's got good responsiveness, and since these are adjustable, they give you a little bit of a range to make sure that you have that. And if there's any problems, you are informed on how to actually make this adjustment. So next up we've got the coolant level. So we'll go to page 114. And here it tells you exactly where your coolant level should be. And we'll go straight over to that and we'll test it out. So this one has to make sure that the motorcycle is perpendicular to the ground. So it's gonna be upright in order to get a proper reading. I won't be able to do that right now since I'm still draining oil, but I'll show you guys exactly where that is. Coming in close, you see you've got an L and an F, and this is gonna be your coolant level. You wanna make sure that it's not over full, but you wanna make sure it's definitely not low. So smack dab in the middle is right where you're aiming for, and if that is good, you are in business. And in case your coolant level is low, it does actually tell you how to fill your coolant levels. So it's all right there for you. We're gonna take a quick intermission on the inspection and we're gonna get back to the oil change. So the next thing we're gonna do is pull this oil filter. It might be a little warm, so you might have to wear your gloves. If you're having trouble with that oil filter, there's a couple tools that you can get from your local parts store or car auto parts store. And these make it a breeze in order to get these filters off. Now that we've got our oil drain, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put in our crush washer and our drain bolt. Grabbing this booklet here that tells you all these cheat codes. It'll say right here, tighten the oil filter, 12.9 foot-pounds for us Americans, and then 22 foot-pounds for the drain bolt. All right, once that's all pre-oiled and lubricated, we've got a little bit of oil around the rim. We're gonna go ahead and get this in place. Get a couple turns. And then, once that is nice and snug, you've got no leaks, we'll go ahead and make sure that it's perfectly good, nice seal. So, take a look here. It says we need between 1.6 liters or 1.7 US quarts or 1.9 US quarts, somewhere in between there. And what we're gonna do is I'd recommend go ahead and using 1 quart and then maybe about a half a quart of the other one. Tilt the bike up, test the level, and then go ahead and add as needed. So we'll do just that. And while that's draining in, go ahead and make sure you check for any leaks. This is your time to tighten everything down, make sure your oil filter is secured, drain plug secured, and just wipe everything down as needed. And then we'll go ahead and tilt it up and test our oil levels, and then we'll add as needed. Since we've got no leaks, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and just fill out this maintenance record, because again, it's right inside of your user manual, so why not use it? So just fill everything out. That way you can keep a nice little log, and then you can make a digital copy or whatever you need for your records. So continue where we left off. Brake light switch, we're gonna test those, and that should be done, as you can see, pretty often, and that's for your safety. So if you don't do it, that's on you. So we're gonna test out these brake lights simply just by pulling the lever and then pressing down on the rear brake. That's it. Looks good. Looks good. And while we're at it, let's just test the turn signals. So the next things we're going to focus on right here is it says drivetrain lubrication condition. We're going to check how lubricated our drivetrain is, or drive chain, excuse me. And then here it says drive chain slack. So that's done every 600 miles for both of these. Well, 400 miles and then 600 miles accordingly. So we're going to show you exactly how to do that. And we're going to start off on page 123. So this is where your chain lives. And according to the booklet, all we're going to do is it says that anytime you go near wet roads or any sort of rain conditions, you want to make sure that your lubricant didn't end up getting all washed off is essentially what you're doing. And you can use any sort of lubrication that you feel. Kawasaki has their own that they recommend. Right now I don't have any on hand, so I'm not going to be doing that, but I'll walk you guys through exactly what you need to do when it comes time to do so. As you can see here, it says apply to the sides of the roller so that it'll make their way through everything, and then wipe off any lubricant that gets on the tire surface, as you can imagine why that's bad. So normally it comes in a little spray can, and you want to aim right in here, so you're trying to get on the sides of these to keep these rollers nice and lubed up. And if you don't know why lubrication is important, I'm sure some of these guys will tell you. Next thing that you're going to be looking for is the amount of slack. So the drivetrain slack inspection section, that's what we're going to be doing. So you're going to need to get this up on the side stand, clean the chain, rotate the rear wheel to find the position where the chain is the tightest, and continue through all that. But basically what you're looking for is, in a nutshell, you're looking for this, you're looking for this deflection. So you want the highest point and lowest point, highest point, lowest point. And the difference between the highest point and lowest point should be 20 to 30 millimeters. So that's how much slack you should have in that chain. Any more or less, then you pull it. If you're running too tight, then it's gonna cause unnecessary wear. And then if it's too loose, it could potentially cause slippage. So you don't want that at all. And then here, it gives you a step-by-step on how to actually adjust the slack. And it's really not that difficult at all, but you just wanna make sure you keep an eye on this chain as you're riding and braking in these miles, and that's it. All right, if you made it this far, thank you guys for staying tuned. All you've gotta do now is get everything back together, fairings and all that good stuff, make it look pretty again, take the bike out for a wash, clean it up, whatever you need to do, go fill it up, go for a ride. Keep an eye out for leaks so you can make sure that everything is still nice and tight. And if you're not sure how to do the fastening and the bolt check and everything like that, all you got to do is find the right size T25s, T30s, whatever they are, and just go around and make sure everything is nice and snug. You don't want anything coming loose while you're riding, right? So that's pretty much common sense. Like I said, none of this I pulled out of my butthole. I pretty much went through this manual step by step. Yeah, there's some things that I already knew, so it wasn't quite step by step, but if you're ever lost, this thing right here will save you. And I appreciate the fact that most of these manufacturers don't try to hide a whole lot from you. It's right here, readily available to their consumer. So if you disagree and think that the service is worth going in for, then great. If you agree with me, awesome. But this isn't a he said, she said, me against you guys, anything like that. It's just showing you that you have the option to be an educated consumer, and it's your choice to take advantage of it. And if you don't like reading, that's okay, because there's guys like me on YouTube that are okay with making these videos and showing you guys whatever you want to learn. So pretty much drop a comment, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys for checking out another video in LJ's Garage.